Hey, welcome to the first video for this channel. Today I'm going to be doing some work on an Audi TT 2002 1.8 Quattro that I've owned for a long time, but been autocrossing pretty heavily for the past 5 years now. I used to run it in street. Now I run it in street prepared. And I had the engine out and was doing a whole bunch of stuff in the off season. But I thought to kick off the new year, I'd just like to do some videos on it. This way, if anybody else is working on a TT or a 1.8, or you just need to fall asleep at night, you have something that you can watch. And to kind of give back a little bit, just since I've learned so much from everybody who posts stuff on YouTube. So maybe I'll do something that maybe someone else didn't cover, but I doubt it. Just to give you a quick view of the car, here it is in its current state. So I've been doing a lot of stuff to it in the off season. I won't bore with all the details because I'm sure I'll cover that as we go. But just got the engine back in a little bit ago. Doing a little bit of work on the interior and cleaning some stuff up back here in the trunk. Got the power steering system and subframe down and out. And I've just been kind of redoing the engine harness, just finding shorts or cut wires, fixing all that stuff. I did a new exhaust manifold from Bartek Racing. Still the stock turbo, of course, per the rules of the class. And today I'm just putting in some new sensors. So I've got a air intake temperature sensor, crankshaft position sensor. This is the drive shaft union that goes in between the transmission and the drive shaft. It was rubbing against the downpipe, and we took the old one and removed the metal housing and thought, oh, okay, well, maybe we could just run it as only the rubber. But then we thought, well, why don't we just take out the downpipe and kind of crease it a little bit, crease the pipe, so that way it's not rubbing against this anymore. And that seemed to be pretty effective, so I might just keep that whole thing together. Let's see what else we got. And then some new knock sensors for the TT. If you're ever working on a TT, and in this day and age, I don't know why you would be, but just note that if you go to like O'Reilly's and get knock sensors, or a lot of the sensors on this car, there was a split in the model year, and you have to kind of memorize your VIN. And more than likely, when you go to O'Reilly's and you order something, they're going to give you just one version, or they won't ask you which one do you need, and they may not even be able to look up which one that you need. So in a lot of cases I have to go to like Rock Auto or ECS Tuning that will actually list like what VIN that a part applies for. So just know that's kind of a thing. Anyway, that's kind of it for the intro. So I'm going to get to work, but I'll kind of clip in some disconnects or whatever I'm kind of touching, just so you're aware. All right, so today kind of what the main thing is I'm just switching out some sensors. I'm just replacing them to kind of refresh them. I run a standalone in the car, a Max ECU race. Not super popular in the States. I think like Haltech and whatever seem to be a lot more prevalent, especially when you look up tuners, like who can do it. But I got it because it had a 1.8T harness and setup. So what it came with is this. And what this does is it plugs in between the Max ECU and the OEM harness. So this way you don't have to be like rewiring it or figuring out what goes to what. You just kind of plug and play and you're good to go. Once it's hooked up, I never had tuned before, so I barely was able to get the car running. Then I took it to a friend of mine who works at a tuning shop, and he got the car running at least, but then wasn't able to make much power with it, gave it back to me, and then I found that a lot of the default settings in the Max ECU were incorrect and had to be kind of like researched and redone. So basically I spent all of last year or last season kind of tuning the car at each event. But the goal now is, took the engine out, found some mechanical things that weren't quite right, so got all them set up, and now get the engine back in, which it is, get all the sensors updated just to make sure that there's no bad signals coming, and then take this to a tuning shop, or I'm sorry, to a dyno shop, and then I'll probably just do the tune myself. At this point, I feel pretty spicy that I can maybe do it. Anyway, so in terms of sensors, one of them will be a crankshaft position sensor. I've actually had this go bad on me once, where the car just didn't start, and I kept cranking and cranking, and I'm like, what could it be? And did some online research and found that the crankshaft position sensor was a possibility. Scrambled because I think it was a night before a race. Found one at Napa, bought it, put it in, car started right up. The location of it on the engine is here. Whoop, sorry. Right there. There's one bolt holding it in, and then this wire kind of runs up. The pigtail on, I don't know if pigtail is the right word, but the harness, the connector on this was not long enough. And so I really had to like kind of take it apart and stretch it. It's supposed to fit. Sorry, I just turned the camera around to make life easier rather than doing it that annoying way. It's supposed to sit up in here. This connector should go into that groove, but as you can see, the wire's just not long enough. I'm hoping maybe this new one is, that will reach up there, so maybe this will be a slight upgrade. The knock sensors, one is there. I think it's a 13 mil. The other is right down there. So I was noticing on the Max ECU that one of the knock sensors wasn't reporting data. I also found that the harness, some of the wires were frayed. So I'm not sure if it was the sensor or the wiring harness, but I fixed the harness. I put in, where are you? Oh, right down here. So I ordered these knock sensor pigtails, and then just got this all together. I used the marine butt connectors that you kind of heat up, and there's some solder in there, so I feel pretty good about the connection. And then just use a label to see if I get that in focus, just kind of mark which one's on which. So I'm going to go ahead and get those out, and we'll be back when I got something new to say. Here's the first one, the passenger side one out of the car, and the two new ones. So just pointing out that they're different lengths. So there's a brown-ended one and a black-ended one. And the brown one goes on the passenger side, and the black one goes on the driver's side. I ordered these from Rock Auto. So here's the brown one, and here's the driver's side one. I might have those flip-flopped, but if you look on the site, just know that there's a brown one and then a black one. All right, so we got the new ones in, knock sensor 1 and knock sensor 2. In terms of torquing them, 15 foot-pounds, done. I love Harbor Freight, but I do not recommend getting the Pittsburgh torque wrench. I've stripped so many bolts with those torque wrenches because they just don't click. So this one's an Icon one, which I've been pretty happy with. I have 2 of them, but just I hate to knock Harbor Freight because I love Harbor Freight, but don't get the Pittsburgh torque wrenches. Anyway, just note too that when these get mounted up, brown one on this side, black one on this side, and then these little ribs kind of sit up top, and then you'll know you're right. So next we'll get the crankshaft position sensor going. All right, so it was a 10 mil to back that out, and I'm happy to say that the wire is longer for this one. So that's a big improvement because I was always concerned that having so much tension on this one, trying to make it work, wasn't good. So we'll get this one mounted up and be back in a sec. I will say that I get annoyed in YouTube videos when they don't show the action, but I just don't have a tripod. I'm doing this with my phone, but I'll stop and get a tripod for future vids. But anyway, so crankshaft position sensors back in. Just know on the Audi, it's actually called an engine RPM sensor. So if you're looking up crankshaft position sensor and you can't find anything, just know it's named a little bit different. But this new longer cord is nice. It's not as sharp as a bend. I utilized this kind of old wiring harness holder and to keep it off the block in the oil cooler, and then ran it back. One thing is in some of the diagrams, you'll see that the crankshaft position center is actually in the center. Whatever, right? I'm just plugging them in. The way that they slide in is all the same. Note though that the way that it slides into this bracket is kind of keyed. So the bumps and ridges on this one are upside down as opposed to the bumps and ridges being on the top for these two. So that's it for those sensors. Next we'll get at the intake air temperature sensor. So that'll just be a bolt coming out and put this back in. And real quick, I wasn't able to find a torque spec for this bolt, but usually on my experience has been on this car so far that bolts in a close proximity are usually the same. So even though it's not the exact same size as the knock sensor, I just went with 15 pounds on that, and that felt pretty good and snug. So on to the next. All right, so we got that out, used an H5, what would you even call those? I guess hex or Allen, not hex, but doesn't matter. I used the thing and it's out. So the old one coming out, it's a little gross and kind of wet looking. I don't think I ever changed this, so I'm not surprised that it doesn't look great. I do water injection with this motor, as well as having a catch can. So I would hope, usually when I inspect like the throttle body, it's clean. I just had the intake off. I was doing some porting and polishing for this within the rule spec, and everything looks pretty good in there. So I just think this is just kind of an old cruddy one, and the new one going in. This one's a Bosch part. I don't know where I threw the bag, but this is a pretty ubiquitous one, so I don't think you'll have any problems ordering this. And to go back in for reassembly, this is an integrated engineering intake manifold mated with I'm pretty sure this is an 80 millimeter Chrysler throttle body. So as part of the IE one, this gets moved from one of the kind of rubber plugs that it's in, and then goes into the intake manifold. There's a little O-ring in there, so shove it in. Of course, there's not going to be a torque spec for that, but maybe I'll just do until it feels right. So let's get that buttoned up. All right, there we go. I just did it, as reasonably tight as I think it needed to be. I don't think this will come out, and if it does start getting loose, I'm sure I'll notice it. All right, so that's cool. Also on the agenda is getting under the car and putting the new rubber union on. I kind of don't feel like crawling around on the cold floor right now, though. I think it's like 30 degrees out. So let me think for a little bit about what the next step is, and we'll go from there. All right, I'm a noob, and I realize that I've been recording this whole time in phone up and down mode, so my bad. I'm doing all the things I hate. Anyway, so I'm gonna get the fuel rail back in. This isn't an aftermarket one, this is just the stock one. I do want to get an aftermarket one. I'm thinking about the 034 Motorsports one, and the reason is I want to have a tap in the line where I could put a fuel pressure sensor and then route that into the max ECU, because the standalone kind of can operate in two modes. One, it assumes that you're using vacuum to maintain line pressure, and it'll just assume that that's correct, but it won't know for certain how much fuel pressure is actually in the rail. So if you get a fuel pressure sensor, you could wire it directly into the standalone, and then it knows exactly how much fuel pressure is in the rail, which will help it pulse the injectors correctly. it's an easy thing to swap in and out, so I feel like I'm just going to put this in for now just to get it set up, and I can always just grab the fuel rail later. So really for installation purposes, and I'm sorry there's background, I'm running the car right now to just warm it up, but this just kind of pops in. It's two 10 mil bolts here and here, and then it'll hook up to the fuel lines coming from over here. In my case, the vent lines I don't use anymore. I'm just running the direct fuel lines into the rail. The vents are able to go per the rules because you get rid of your emission stuff. So anyway, I'll get this bolted in and then come right back. Alrighty, so we got the fuel rail in. I didn't torque those down yet, but I kind of hate torquing into the aluminum head, especially in this aftermarket one, because I'm never sure if it's right. So I just kind of used a 1/4-inch drive and got those snugged up, but I think they'll be fine. Then I kind of cleaned up the wiring harness here. I just took off the old sheathing, put new on, kind of taped everything down, zip tied it. So I'm going to get the injectors back in. There's a little metal clip that will go here that will hold them on. So this you just kind of press on, and then each of these little clips will hold it in. So just be careful as you're doing this, because these like to pling and then go flying, and then you spend more time looking for it than you do actually installing it. So I'll go ahead and get those clipped in, and then I'll probably zip tie this to the fuel rail just to kind of secure it so it's not wobbling around. And then after that, I'll run the plug for the cam position sensor, which is right here. I didn't get a new one of these. I might do it, but again, it's an easy swap out. It's not like the knock sensor that's going to be buried once the front end is back on. So I'll get that clipped up too, and then come back. Actually, a little tip for these. I should have explained this. So I kind of made it seem like you have to put this on and then fiddle with the clip, but what you can do is you can set the clip into the groove, and hopefully one-handed this doesn't go flying. Okay, so we got it in there, and then because the injector, I don't know if you could see it, but it's slanted, so it'll just ride over it and then clip in. So we can do that and that, give it a tug, and we're all good. So that'll just make it easier so you're not trying to like goof with it and then it goes flying. All right, so I got those on. I zip tied the wiring harness to the rail here. I also connected up the cam position sensor, just put the clip in, popped it in, all good there. I think I would like to kind of zip these up together, and then they can join the harness that's going for both the ignition coils, and I think the oil pan level sensor goes down and behind and whatnot. So just since I'm going to be cleaning up some of this wiring, I'm going to head over to Harbor Freight and go get some zip ties. I got an email that they're giving away something for free if you spend 20 bucks today. I think it's a wrench set or stepper drill bit or something like that, and why not? So I'll be back after I get the zip ties, and we'll kind of clean this up a little bit. I don't want to go too crazy with the wiring because I'm waiting on a new coolant flange. This broke at the end of last season. I was having a lot of problems with the fan relay that I bought. It was a Mishimoto relay, and a lot of the wiring and relays and stuff just corroded really bad, and maybe part of that was my fault where it mounted, but I don't think it was kind of the best quality thing. So at the last event I went to in the late summer, the fan relay stopped working, the car was sitting idling, and then this the coolant flange that sits here is plastic, and it just split open, and then there was just smoke billowing out from under the car. That's a pretty common failure. I've broken those many times. They do make a metal one, an aluminum one that you could put there, but I almost like using the plastic one, because if it's going to overheat, like, let that be the thing that gives rather than something internal in the motor. So I ordered a new plastic one, and I'm going to mount that up, but and I got to get to all these hoses, and it's a real cluster to do some of that. So I don't want to necessarily like finalize the wiring quite yet, but where and when I can, just to kind of clean some stuff up, just to make some progress. So anyway, I'm gonna head out, and then we'll kind of wrap this part up. All right, so I got some zip ties and just getting this done up. But one thing I don't know if maybe you've seen before, but they have these at Harbor Freight, which is a zip tie gun. And what you do, and I find this really nice for like wiring or really anything, is you kind of just, hand start it like you normally would. And sometimes I would use, pliers or a wrench and it's in a tight spot and you're trying to like, hold the box down while getting tension on it and all that jazz. But what this does is pretty nice. So it's got this like little kind of gripper. So we can thread it on here like that, and then just kind of zip it and it cuts it. So it's pretty snazzy. I think it's like a couple bucks, but if you do a lot of zip tying or you just kind of want a cleaner, easier way to do it, I highly recommend one of these. All right, anyway, we're getting that tied up. Maybe this will be the port for the catch can is going to connect up to this, but I'm going to reroute that. I used to have the catch can over here, and then the other end of the catch can went into the intake, but I'm thinking about not running it to the intake anymore. I'm thinking about just putting a breather filter on it and just kind of let it do its own thing. So what that will mean is I'll need to kind of decide where it's going to be down there. But I might just run some of these other kind of connectors that are hanging out in the back. And again, I don't want to do too much of this up because I still got to get in here and I might have to adjust the trans linkage and stuff like that. Another thing too is the turbo inlet is down there. So on there, we would normally use an aftermarket turbo intake pipe tip, and that would kind of sit down in there. And then I have a filter that connects that. But these are normally I have to block two of these out and then just run one for the catch can. So I've never figured out a really good way to plug these. I normally just put like a really big bolt or something stupid in there. But I think what I'm going to do is replace this. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this and just make this a silicone union. And then I'm going to order some pipe that has that same diameter but is basically a 90-degree elbow, and then run that kind of up and out, and maybe just do some custom plumbing to get just a pipe from the turbo directly to the air filter. So I'm gonna measure this up, and maybe I'll show the ordering, like kind of like how I go about it, just like if you've never done anything like that before, like what does it look like? And I'm by no means a professional. I'm just guessing my way through literally everything. But you can watch somebody else who equally doesn't know anything kind of stumble through it and then learn from my mistakes and then do it a little bit better. So let's see. Let me kind of clean up some of this wiring, and then I'll kind of come back with whatever the next steps are. Okay, I figured out the next thing that we're going to do here. So this is the wiring kind of loom for the ignition coils, and the stock version of this is kind of wrapped in some heat tape, and I had to remove that to kind of like rewire a cut in the wire, and I really never got this kind of back together appropriately. So I have this DEI thermal loom, but the problem with it is that like you have to fit the wire through it first, and it's this pretty long thing, and if it has any harnesses or it's not terminated, like there's really no way to get this thing over. So I've just had this on the shelf forever. But I think what I'm going to do is modify this, and I'm just going to cut it open on this seam to length, wrap it, and then just zip tie it, and then at least it'll get some protection just so it's not touching the head and melting or anything crazy like that. So let me do that. I'm just going to take a razor and literally just cut this spine, cut it to length, wrap it over, zip tie it, call it a day. So I'll show you the finished results of that in a second. All right, so got all of that done. Just kind of cut it, wrapped it around. I put the seam on the bottom, which kind of lifts it up off the head a little bit, so to create a little bit of clearance. I did a little notch here to allow for this ground to come out, and then just zip tied this all. Now, what's inevitably going to happen is something's going to be wrong back here with the manifold or the turbo, and I'm going to have to get in there and start fidgeting around, and then I'm going to lift my arm out, and I'm going to have a million scratches from these stupid ends. So something I would recommend if you don't hate your future self is just take a rasp and just hit each one just a little bit, and that'll take any corner off, and then you know, you won't be looking like you got in a fight with a street cat. Anyway, not exactly sure what I'm going to move on to next here. I do have this line which goes to the oil pan, which I haven't loomed up yet because there's a ground in it that needs to come out and also go to the head right here. So I got to kind of figure out where that's going to line up. But this wire comes from a different kind of loom than this one does. So these other wires kind of have to get themselves figured out before I think I can do that one exactly. So may not do that quite yet. Let's see. Yeah, let me set this down for a second and just kind of figure out what the next move is, and we can go from there. I'm sorry this seems to jump around so much, but what I did is I bought a pack of these clamps from Harbor Freight, a couple bucks, and I put one here to just kind of hold this harness from wiggling around. There's really nothing that holds this down anywhere. I don't think it'll vibrate too much, but I think coming kind of off the here, if it was just dangling, I wouldn't want that. This line goes down to the back of the trans. I think this one is either the reverse of the speed sensor. I don't remember which, but it's kind of a little bit loose, and it kind of rubs against the coolant line and the shifting lines. But I might tie that up a little bit just so it doesn't chafe on anything. And then coming up here, I thought it would be nice to put another one of these just to kind of hold this here. But this bolt is a larger diameter than this hole. So I think I'm just going to pop this in the vise, open that up a little bit, put that there, and then we should be good to go. So I'll be back once all that's done. Alrighty, so I'm getting some more of the connections going, and for some reason these two went in really good and this one just would not. So I had to take some channel locks and just kind of squeeze it together. Then I pulled it back apart to make sure the pins weren't bent or anything, but I think it's okay. I think the little rubber boot in there may not have been like fully seated. That kind of makes it waterproof or whatever. So that all seems to be good now. So now I'm just kind of bunching these up, running them back through this loom that I used earlier for the crank case or the RPM sensor. I'll probably put some wire loom cover over this and then kind of run that back out and up to wherever it goes, and then that should be done. But I might check to see if any other wires run this way, just so I can kind of get everything in the loom at once. But I've been kind of keeping everything separate, so maybe I'll just loom those together and run that up. And if anything else comes through here, like for the alternator, which there'll be a harness and a big positive cable, blah, blah, blah. But maybe I'll just run that through this loom holder and have that be its own kind of almost separate circuit in a way. There's also the oil pressure sensor. I didn't replace that. Maybe I should have. But irrespective, I'll figure out which plug that runs and put that in there. Maybe just kind of make this one big happy family of wires. So I'll come back when that's done. I just went to Harbor Freight. I also ordered some off of Amazon, just normal loom, and I just kind of wrap that over, zip tie it up, and that should be it. So get to work on that next. All right, so I'm kind of mocking everything up, wiring wise, and kind of just like zip tying a bunch, seeing what else runs, undoing it, kind of redoing it as needed. But really what I should be doing is kind of starting from here and kind of clamping down the things that are going to be officially here. But my one problem is I didn't wrap this set of wires up, because this is for the brake fluid level sensor, and one of the wires snapped pretty deep inside the connector. I think that there's some other connectors that are kind of similar that I've kind of tied up that aren't being used anymore. But it's against the rules to modify the connectors or the wiring harness. So I think what I'm going to try to do is depin this and pull those, whatever. Try to pull those two out and then see if maybe I can just solder them up or something. I don't have the female pins of that size, and I kind of wouldn't even know exactly what to order to get those, and I also don't want to spend $10 ordering a kit for 2 little pins. So I'm hoping there'll be just enough lead wire in there where I can maybe strip it, solder some extra wire to it, and then do a butt connector back to the main. And I think it might be okay to solder in here. Sorry, that's probably because it's not going to be shaking. Like inside there should be stable, so maybe I'll get lucky. So I'll report back, I guess. It would be cool to kind of show you the depinning process. Again, I'm not good at it, but I'm not going to be able to do it one-handed. So maybe when I get a tripod, I'm sure this will come up again. But yeah, I'll report back once that's done. All right, part in the car running, but I was able to get the first one depinned, and I just kind of bumped some wire in it because there's not very much, and I'm going to try to solder that in, and then that should sit inside the connector. So see how this first one goes. Alrighty, got all that sorted out. So I was able to get both pins out, stripped them back with what little wire was left, and then just soldered 2 new wires in, and most of that solder is actually living inside the housing. So I think we'll be pretty good. I don't think any vibration will catch it, but I'm just going to hit it with some heat to shrink the tubing to kind of just bind all that together so it kind of reduces the stress. I might run some tape over that. But I think this will be fixed. We can get back to getting the harness set up. All right, so back in the car, I'm using some of these solder seal wire connectors. It's basically a butt connector, but when you heat it up, there's sealant as well as solder. So I'll bring the 2 wires together, and then we got a little bit of extra length here, maybe more than I need, but you know, why not have it? Since the wire broke before, it was probably under a little too much tension or vibration, so we'll have some play in it. But anyway, just kind of push the wires. It's a little blurry, but push the wires into there, and then I'm going to hit it with some heat. That'll seal it, solder it, tape it up, put a loom on it, done and done, and then we can get some of these other wires done up. All right, we got that cleaned up, so just zip tied that, put it in a loom. It's good to go. So now what I think I could do is start bunching some of these up and just kind of zip tying them on down the line. This is for the intake air temperature sensor. This one was also busted, which I had fixed before, but it's got a long run to try to get all the way over here. So I think I need to extend this wire, and then I'll probably end up tucking that into one of the looms that's already running this way, just to kind of spare having snakes all over the place. But let me try and tighten some of this up, and then I can kind of come back on that. Well, the shop is a not so spicy 20-something degrees now, and it's a little too cold for me. But we got some good stuff done here. The looms are looking, yeah, I'll just do it the right way. The looms are coming along pretty good, so I extended this line, did some butt connectors, put the wrap on the wire, redid this part so I could put that as part of the cam sensor loom. So that's all good to go. I also taped up this little section that wasn't. This ground wire is the ground for the sensor that goes to the oil pan, and that needs to be grounded up here. So I got to figure out how exactly I'm going to kind of route this one in. I'm probably not going to take this back apart for that, but I might just tape that one up and kind of put it to that ground. I mocked up the broken coolant kind kind of splitter that comes off the car or the motor for the coolant plug, so I can kind of just figure out and kind of mock up where that's going to sit. So that's all looking good. This whole section is good now, except for these wires that come out for the secondary air pump and the ECU, but I'm going to turn the secondary air pump relay into an after run relay for the ECU. So we'll get into that later. If it wasn't so cold, I'd probably just finish this up right here. This is kind of like the last wiring to do. And then I think it's just kind of cleaning this mess up, getting the grounds back on the body, kind of figuring out where to put the positive fuse panel. That used to sit on the battery that's over here, or that was over here. Battery's not here anymore. It's in the trunk. So, yeah, a lot of little stuff, but good progress. I'm happy to have gotten the sensors all plugged in and made some progress on the wiring. There won't be too much to do after that wiring wise. Then it's going to be getting the subframe back on, CVs, suspension, drive shaft, a lot of front end underneath stuff. And then after that, see if the car starts. If it does, I want to redo some wiring inside because I wired up a push button start and a toggle switch for the main power. So I might spend some time redoing that, or I might just leave that alone and take the car to the dyno, get the tune good, then redo the interior wiring. I got to think a little bit about if there's anything dependent for the tune. But other than that, that's it. So I'll probably be back at it tomorrow or next weekend, but just wanted to kind of update on some of the progress going on. Thanks for watching.